computer.
Okay.
That's right, yes.
Alright, so.
That's right, yeah.
All right, today is Wednesday, March 19th, 2025. This is a Curriculum and Learning Committee meeting at the School District of Menominee Falls Board of Education. There's a possibility that a quorum of the full membership of the Board of Education may be in attendance at board committee meetings, including virtual meetings. There will be no full board action taken at any board committee meeting. Only members of the committee may vote on any item on the agenda. Live broadcast is streaming on school district YouTube page. To watch the recorded meeting, please visit School District of Menominee Falls YouTube site. And we're at the school district office building, conference room 3344, 3345 on Pilgrim Road. And it is 6:01 and the meeting is called to order. And it was properly posted?
Yes.
Okay, and moving right along to minutes approval. Everybody get a chance to look at it?
Yes.
Do I have a motion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, minutes are passed.
Second.
And then,
Well,
oh, sorry.
I'll
I
second.
know, I'm like buzzing along.
Yes, Jim's anywhere better to be, come
I'm
on.
trying to stay awake.
C&L.
Okay, so discussion item, Act 20 literacy update.
yes, so, we've talked about Act 20 a couple of times, but I thought it would be helpful to bring back an update of where we are currently, because a lot has happened since we last discussed. I also have some data for you, so, I will run through this. So Act 20, as you recall, has a lot of components to it, so we're not gonna talk about everything tonight. We're gonna focus on the teacher training and the leader training, which are two pieces. The teacher training has to be started by July 1, which we've done, so we'll talk about that. The leader training has to be completed by July 1 of this year, and that is done. And then the assessment is ongoing. We also, since we've last talked, have talked about Act 20, have done our first round of assessments and have written some personal reading plans for students who need them. And then I'll just talk briefly about kind of one of the next things on the horizon is that promotion policy that's required with Act 20. So we'll talk about that briefly. So jumping right in, that teacher training, all kindergarten through third grade teachers who and others who work with students in learning to read and teaching reading are required to complete some specific teacher training in the science of reading, and we were provided with a list of approved trainings that we could choose from. We've chosen, as many districts have, to use Cox Campus because it is a free resource for us. It's a series of online modules. We have chosen to have all of our elementary classroom teachers participate in this because we think the learning is good for our 4K teachers as well as our 4th and 5th grade teachers. Some of the modules may be less applicable than others, but again, any teacher has a variety of, a wide range of student needs in their classrooms, so having that early literacy knowledge is valuable. So our elementary classroom teachers, our teachers of our English learners are participating, as well as our special education cross-categorical teachers. People like OTs and PTs are not, but our cross-categorical teachers are within special education, and then our reading interventionists are participating in this training. They had an initial introduction to both the Cox Campus platform and what the training would be like during our January 27th Professional Learning Day, which was a day of learning for our elementary teachers. And then they were assigned their first module, and it was approximately, I believe, an hour and a half, 2 hours that they had to watch in that first module. They viewed that module outside of the workday, and then came to the next meeting, which was on our February 21st Professional Learning Day, to then meet in groups and discuss. And that discussion was led by one of the literacy coaches. So it was kind of a flipped classroom approach where they did the outside of work learning and then came to discuss how that learning would be applied or could be applied in the classroom. So it wasn't just passive watching, there was an application and discussion or discussion of application of learning after viewing the modules. So we had that first round in February, and then they were assigned another module, and they completed that in time for today's early release. And so every elementary teacher then participated in the discussion today around the second module. So, and I was able to be at Valley View to observe that. So, of course, this is extra work for our teachers outside of the workday, and so we were able to compensate, or we are able to compensate the teachers for this additional work outside of the day, so at the rate of $20 an hour. We have a schedule that they'll be paid out, twice this spring for the work that's done, and then into next year. So they receive that additional compensation for that acknowledgement of that work outside of the workday that they're doing.
Any highlights or feedback, anything consistently that has come back as far as the training?
But so far, I can say today I heard teachers, and this actually would be consistent of things I've heard earlier. Just making connections to things that they're seeing in students,
Right.
and like little bits of information. Oh, I hadn't realized that maybe somebody was talking today about being able to identify a letter, like point to the letter L is different than what letter is that? That's L. What sound does it make? And just how students might be able to do one but not the other. And just some of those really nuanced pieces.
So not necessarily all new information, obviously,
No,
but a way to
take-
look at it and approach the information. Okay.
Yeah, and I think just some things that maybe you may have learned in your initial teacher training, but you haven't used, and so, it's just good reminders as well as just looking at things in different ways. So I'm also taking the modules and have been working on it for a little while. Mine is more of a Saturday morning activity
Sure.
that I do, but I'm working my way through, and I have found all of them to be really valuable.
Okay.
So, yeah, I've heard very positive things about it so far.
And then remind me, when they passed the bill, is there funding that comes along with that training?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Okay, so
No,
unfunded
so this is
mandate.
something that I was able to build into my department budget.
Seeing it coming down and preparing for that. Okay.
Yes, so we were able to think about this last year for this school year, and so we were able to build it into the budget, and we were very conscious of just our teacher workload around knowing that there were going to be some new things happening with new curriculum, et cetera, and so we made the conscious choice, knowing that we had to have it started, but didn't have to have it finished by July of this year, to wait until the second semester to begin that work.
Right.
So now that work will continue through fall and early winter next year, because there's about 30 hours of training altogether. So we've spaced that out. There'll be some in the summer, there'll be some in the fall, and then some in the early winter, and it culminates with a pretty lengthy assessment. I believe it has over 200 questions on it that they
Okay.
have to take and then provide the certificate
That's
as an
expensive.
completion.
Okay.
So that will happen the way we've scheduled it out. If we stay on pace, they'll take that assessment in January or February of 2026.
And this is kind of a little bit of a rabbit trail, but just the way my brain works. So people that are going for their teacher's training certificate now, this training is embedded.
It will
In
be,
that?
it will be beginning this July. So
Okay.
beginning July
So
1,
the
teacher
universities have the same deadlines that we
Yes.
were given essentially, so then everyone is up to speed at the same point. So we're not having to do additional
There
training to,
potentially will be a little bit of a gap in this hiring season.
okay,
And so I have had outreach from at least one university, maybe two now, they were all, we had some discussion, I guess, I would say, regarding what tool are you using? Are you okay if teachers come in already having done this? Sure, absolutely, we'll accept their certificate. So just
Right.
so that from universities, so they can help prepare.
right, Okay.
So we had at least one teacher who moved in or came to us this school year, and their district had been an early adopter of this, so she was already well finished. And so I'm not making her do this again. She provided her certificate, and then I've
Right.
asked that because the discussions are during work time, that she sit in with the group and participate in the discussions.
Sure.
So,
So once they have their certificate, they're set,
yes,
and they don't have to do like a renewal or a recert.
not at this
Okay.
time.
never know, right?
Exactly, I would never say never on
Yeah,
that one, but
exactly.
right now, no, that's just this initial training and they can hang on to that certificate. And I haven't heard for sure, but I would imagine other districts would handle it similar to what we do in terms of, we'll accept completion from other,
Right,
that are on that.
because the
accepted list.
assessment that they're taking is the same assessment.
I think it's similar, I don't know that they're exactly the same, but they
Interesting.
cover the same.
Okay, concepts and.
Yes, and these different resources have been endorsed and approved by
Right.
DPI, so
Okay.
so we would accept any of those. So that piece is ongoing. The leader training, we had a good number of principals and coaches who had not previously participated in an approved early literacy leadership training. A few of us did. I actually started mine with Brad Hoffman and some of the coaches in January of '23 through CISA 6. And so a few of us were able to finish that. It was a 2-year program or spread out over 2 years. And so we had completed our training. But there were a number of leaders who hadn't had that opportunity. We did open it up, I guess I should say, the K through 3 principals are required to participate, as well as other folks who are considered reading specialists. They have that reading specialist license. We opened it up to K-12 principals as well as all of our literacy coaches, just to cover all of our bases because we thought it was good training for everybody. And with that, then we were able to bring in a facilitator from CISA 6 to be right here in Menominee Falls to lead a 6-session training. And we started that in October and finished it up earlier this month.
Okay,
So I should be getting the certificates from CISA 6 to
you have a lot of
I
certificates
have a
on your
lot of
wall.
cataloging and keeping track of certificates was something that was not on our list of things to do, but is now something that we are keeping track of, so.
Right,
So we'll keep those all electronically filed, so we make sure we can document those, because DPI doesn't ask for them, they just ask that we have a tracking system, so.
sure.
So we were glad to have that successfully completed, and it was a valuable training, we had some really good discussions, so. The other big piece that has been happening is that literacy screener, and that assessment we are using is called AimsWeb Plus. This was selected by DPI and provided to us at no cost to use. So we did, I think we've talked about, we did our training in the fall and then began the winter round of screening in December and January. So typically, from now on, we will screen 3 times a year, fall, winter, and spring, but this year, due to the delay in getting started, we did not do the fall screening, we're not required to. So in the winter, we were required to screen our students in 5K through grade 3, so we did that. And of course, you probably recall there are all a number of timelines around completing the screener and communicating with parents and all of that, and we met those for every student who was here at the time. We had a couple with extended absences that we picked up as soon as they came back. So that all went very well due to a lot of hard work from a number of people out in our schools and our staff here at DO. As a reminder, most of the assessments are administered one-on-one with the student. We have a vocabulary assessment at 2nd and 3rd grade that students can do on the computer, but most of the rest of them are all one-on-one administration. Any student who scored below the 25th percentile on identified assessments, and the assessments that we give and the assessments that they use for that kind of flag, at-risk flag, are a little different by grade level. So I won't get into the weeds on that, but they really focus on that oral reading fluency. And there's also vocabulary and other pieces of early literacy learning that they attend to. But anyone who scored below the 25th on those identified key assessments then was administered some follow-up diagnostic assessments to really dig in. What is it that's tripping them up here? What do they need next in their learning? And so our literacy coaches, our interventionists, and our curriculum and learning coaches administered those screening and diagnostic assessments. So knowing again the workload that teachers had with new curriculum and the teacher training and the other things, we did not ask our classroom teachers to administer the screening this round, and we're not asking them to do it for the spring.
Okay.
We will, I think, have to ask them to help in the fall. And I think it's important that they're involved, because I think when you're doing that one-on-one screening, you're really getting some good information about your students as readers and learners. But we felt like capacity-wise, it was just important that we take that off their plates if we could at this point.
Okay.
And we now, learn the screener and the process, and so we'll be more confident in our ability to kind of train people to do that. I think it was new for it was new for everybody, so.
Do you think it will be a
step.
transition, like the literacy coaches will be like supporting
Oh,
them and,
for sure.
yeah, okay.
For sure. And I imagine that for the most part, our coaches and interventionists will probably always do that diagnostic piece.
Yes.
That isn't something that every student will receive. But the screening assessments, I think classroom teachers will be much more involved in next year with the support of the coaches and interventionists, because it is an undertaking. And then for students who scored below the 25th percentile, we wrote personal reading plans. And so those interventionists worked with classroom teachers, worked with coaches to write those plans. And again, we've always had plans for students around intervention, but this was much more of a formalized process, I think, and for a greater number of students, not just students who ultimately received intervention from an interventionist, but also for students who are receiving support just within the regular classroom. So that was the process, and I've got a couple of examples to show you of those. And then we finished screening at the end of January, and then finished writing plans, et cetera, and communicating with parents in early February, and then began screening again on Monday. So the spring screening window opened on the 17th and continues through the 24th of April. And this time we are screening 4K through 3rd grade students. So 4K students aren't identified in the same way and we don't do follow-up diagnostics with them, just they are our youngest learners. So we have screened our 4K students this week for the first time, and then after spring break we'll start working through kindergarten to 3rd grade. So,
That's a lot going on.
well, always, never bored. I got a chance to talk to you a little bit about this data when I did the strategic plan report, but this is a different visual and a couple different ways to look at it. These are the percentage of students who scored below the 25th percentile on the screener and received a personal reading plan. Now, for some students, that personal reading plan may be part of their IEP because they already are within the special education and they maybe had a goal in reading. For our students who are language learners, that could be a part of something they were already doing with the EL teacher. So those students are included in these numbers. You can see overall that 25.9%, to be precise, of students in grades 5K through 3 who were screened received a personal reading plan after their assessment, and that you can then see how it's broken down by grade level. So. And then on the second page, you can see, again, the district-wide number as well as the breakdown by school.
Back to that.
Yes.
I think it's fascinating to see the trend from 5K all the way up to 3rd grade, the percentage rise.
Yes, so we, our conclusion that we've drawn so far is, of course, the skills get more challenging as they progress forward. We also know that our students in kindergarten, they've had varying levels of instruction phonics. Hegarty, for example, was something that was brought in our new curriculum. So our conclusion so far is that that is a part of what we're seeing, those gaps are a little bit wider for some of our students, and so we're working to close those gaps for students in our in second and third grade, and working to keep those gaps from opening.
Remind me again, when did we start
grade.
using Haggerty?
We
Was it
started using Haggerty last year.
last year?
Mhm.
Okay, so then the first graders would have had that.
So all of these students have had a little bit.
Okay.
Third graders just had it in second grade.
Right, okay.
So, and first graders have had it in kindergarten and first grade.
I mean, I'm not saying that that's the magic
No,
fix, that like that's the
There are
one thing, I'm sure
variety
there's multiple.
Yes,
Um,
multiple dimensions to this, but so our challenge is to keep that gap from opening. As the skills progress and get more difficult, we wanna keep that number low. We want to be meeting those needs through our core instruction. And we feel like we've got a good resource in my view, as well as the teacher training and learning that we're doing, because it's helping teachers understand the components of early reading and early literacy a little bit differently. So that knowledge should be helpful as well.
So I think you answered it too before. So screenings of the past compared to this reading screening. Do you think that this one digs deeper
Well,
or it
It-
looks at different
it-
things? Like you said, the oral reading.
there's some very similar things, and then there's also a focus on oral reading fluency, which was not a part of not as much of a focus in our previous resource.
Okay.
And so one of our learnings and things that is a part of our new resource is that
It is.
practicing
Okay.
of reading, getting a passage that you haven't seen
Mhm.
before and reading as quickly but as
Fluently.
fluently, accurately as you can in 1 minute. And so that's a skill we haven't practiced with kids very
Right.
much.
Yeah.
So that's something that, it's not the only thing we want to do, obviously, we
Right.
don't wanna over practice it, but we do want to expose that to them.
One component.
Expose them with that multiple times so it becomes more comfortable for them. Because we know when you can read accurately and quickly,
Mm-hmm.
then your comprehension is going to be stronger.
That's a huge foundation,
Yeah, absolutely,
huge.
yes.
Yeah, so my concern is, as they get older, I don't want that gap to get
Correct.
because obviously they're gonna get behind the 8 ball more and more as they get older. It's hard to make up that difference.
Absolutely.
Well, and I think with the new curriculum too, we just have more, like you said one time, I think, Amy, like laser focus,
Absolutely.
alignment with the standards and moving these kids along. So-
Yes.
Mhm.
So we're in a good place and we'll continue to monitor this in this way. So we also know that as we go through the year, the expectations increase for students. So what's expected, what's at the 25th percentile in spring is the more rigorous expectation than it was in the winter, and it will be in the fall. So that'll be, because students are expected to learn and progress throughout the year, so.
Oh, interesting, okay.
So, and then by school, again, knowing that Ben Franklin kindergarten, first and second grade students were screened at Ben Franklin and Shady Lane, and then Riverside and Valley View, it's just the third graders being screened. So it's just the youngest students in those two schools, so. These are of the students who were screened, these are the percentage of students or percent of students who have a reading plan.
I think I may have asked you this before, but please remind me, like, with these numbers and looking at surrounding districts, obviously everybody's coming into this new Act 20, these new tests, and I guess scorecards for children and their reading level. Are you confident with these numbers? Are we on the high side, the low side, right in the mix? I can't remember what you had said.
I don't have, and DPI won't be collecting these numbers because this is a new process. They don't have an automatic process to collect these, so they can report them out so that I can compare official numbers
Right.
across districts yet. So they will be collecting these from us manually this year eventually. I think
Okay.
there'll be a automatic process so the data just gets pulled. So I don't have any official comparison. Anecdotally, just based on conversations here and there and bits and pieces I've seen, I feel pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I've seen some that are better
Yeah.
and many that are not as good.
Sure.
So.
Okay. It's
I
a
guess-
process that everyone's going through right now,
Absolutely, everybody's new at this and finding, where their students are and what they need next. And lots of other districts have new curriculum as well.
Right.
So if you recall, like just for districts using MyView, Muskego, Mequon, Elmbrook's in their second year. But those two are two neighbors of ours who are in their first year, just like we are, using that same curriculum. And there are others who have different curriculum.
Sure.
So I'll go ahead and jump ahead to the personal reading plans. We have a set template that was recommended by DPI, and so we use that to start with. We can always make tweaks to it, but we wanted to start with this and see how it worked for us. So I have two samples here. I have tried to be very careful to protect privacy, so I took off identifying details and changed some others, but you get a sense of the format. These are both third grade examples, but it starts off with students' first language, their interests and things that they learn from talking with parents. Parents also had an opportunity, both in the screening letter and the results letter, to go online and complete a survey with some questions that we could see. So if they didn't want to talk to us directly, they could give us some information about history and interests of their students, et cetera, and kind of the reading life of their student. So we could use that as well. We looked at whether the student had any additional supports or programs that they were receiving. Every student has a team around them. It's going to be the classroom teacher. If they're receiving support from a reading teacher or specialist, if they're not receiving individualized support outside of the classroom, then it might be the reading coach who kind of monitor this plan and get information from the parents, et cetera. And then one person who's responsible for making sure the plan is implemented. And then we had to verify, yes, we have a science-based early reading program, which was the MyView that we selected. So these are statements that came from DPI. So we were able to answer yes for all of that. And then what supports the students is receiving within classroom instruction. So, and everybody is receiving the same base instruction. And then we get into that assessment data. And parents got a report sent home with their child. But we also noted the key details here within the early reading plan. So at third grade, measured decoding skills through that oral reading fluency, and then vocabulary. Different sub-skills based on different grade levels, but those were the two that were assessed at third grade. And then the student also then had that additional diagnostic assessment. We were able to use AimsWeb. So for ease of use, we made the decision to use AimsWeb as opposed to, we've been using FastBridge previously, just so all the data was in the same place. And AimsWeb offered a couple of the tests that FastBridge didn't have, and so DPI had provided that suite to us at mostly no additional cost. There was one subtest that had an additional cost, which we picked up.
Sure.
Whether we use FastBridge or AimsWeb, it was going to have an additional cost, so we just kept it AimsWeb. So we provided information to the parent on the diagnostic tests that their student received and how they did, and then did an overall analysis, just very briefly, what was the skill that the student needed to practice, and for this particular student, it was fluency. That's the opportunity for growth. And then every student has a plan. The goal, for this student is just to work on that reading with phrasing in order to increase their words per minute, and they have a way that they're going to progress monitor that. And then a benchmark, they want to obviously get the rate to that 25th percentile to start. And then what the plan is, and then for this particular student, it's going to be a small group focused on fluency in the regular classroom. And and they're gonna progress monitor it through some timed readings, because if you look up here, if I go back, I should have pointed this out. When we did the diagnostics on the rapid naming, which a student gets pictures and they have to quickly
Okay.
recall the names
Oh,
as part of that fluency piece.
Mhm.
And then spelling was a little below, but still in the range of typical at the 47th percentile. Listening comprehension was strong and reading comprehension was strong. So it was really just that fluency practice
Mhm.
for this particular student. So they've got a small fluency group. And then we were able to give some recommendations for parents, and then folks sign off. And this gets sent home with the student, and then also electronically, so the kind of the case manager, whether it's a classroom teacher or the reading intervention extend, communicates directly with the parents and helps grow that relationship. And then I didn't include any of this, but as if they're in a group, then they can track attendance in, yep, they participated in group all week or they missed the stage, just so we can, in order to make progress, the student has to be in attendance
Mhm.
and you're getting that instruction. So, and then there's a place for what are the next steps, and they get, within the law, we're required to report progress to the parent at least every 10 weeks.
Do they meet with the parent
We did,
specifically?
we did not have the time
Okay.
in the 15 days to do all of this,
Oh,
to
15
do
days,
that, cause you have to.
But you could meet after too.
Yes, they definitely, so we had that email communication, we can have
Okay.
phone communication, ultimately, yes, we'd love to
Yeah,
sit down
and
with
if they
every
have
parent and do
questions or
that.
whatever.
This first time that just wasn't possible, but they're able to continue that relationship, and of course, we would sit down with any parent who wanted
Right.
to.
So I see the documentation for progress, but
Mhm.
do we actually have like a goal, right? For a student that is, let's just say at 20 percentile, do we establish a goal that we would like for them to be at the tail end of the, in reach or whatever?
Yeah, this student was pretty close, so they established just that benchmark goal of being at the 25th percentile. Was what they wrote this time, for this
Okay.
particular student.
25%.
For within the 10
Well,
weeks.
right,
you always
Yeah.
like set it.
So,
And that's clear on there, that's that time period?
Mhm.
Okay.
should be. And then, of course, we have the opportunity, we're screening again now, so we'll see
Right.
where the student is and we can adjust. I anticipate, because of the way this has worked, that there may be many students who continue with their personal reading plan into next school year. So that we make sure that we have it pretty solid.
What'd be fascinating is, seeing the data a year from now.
100%.
I think that'll be just
Yes.
really interesting.
Yes.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's a lot going on and then, it'll help
Yes, for sure.
identify and coach.
And then there's another sample here, I won't go through all of it because it looks very similar, but for a student who's receiving, you can see this student's decoding was more significantly at risk, just at the 15th percentile for decoding, as well as the 35th percentile for vocabulary. And those are national percentile ranks. And then had low spelling as well as low reading comprehension in their assessment. So they had multiple areas that they want to work on. And so, again, their goal is to have the initial oral reading fluency at the 25th percentile. They have a more intense intervention with using a program called Foundations with the reading teacher, meeting 4 to 5 days a week outside of the classroom, in addition to the regular reading instruction. So this is an extra piece. And they're actually going to be using that fast bridge. They're going to go into that monitoring tool then that we have used previously to monitor. And then again, we would monitor the progress and make adjustments as needed. So.
Because there's no monitoring tool with AIMS, really. it's like a
There
different type of?
is, it just wasn't something we were familiar with or
Okay.
had used before, so our interventionists are familiar with FastBridge, so we decided to go ahead and use that for now. We can always adjust, but that's what they were familiar with. And what our special education teachers use, you know, et cetera, so. Oh, I'm not gonna wanna close that out. That's what I did. So, sorry, it's gonna be back to. And then the last piece is this, just that promotion policy. With Act 20, it requires that the board adopt by July 1 a policy for promoting students from 3rd grade to 4th grade who have not completed their personal reading plan and aren't proficient on the forward exam. And so DPI provided some initial guidance and a model policy for that back in January. And then of course, we use the policy resource guide from WASB, and they provided in February quite a bit of additional guidance. And so I've been working and sorting through that to take one of their drafts. They had multiple draft policies, and so I looked through those, did a bunch of reading, selected one that I thought would work for us, and I've been working on drafting that. I learned then that DPI was gonna provide some additional guidance in mid-March, and I also have a meeting tomorrow at CISA where the director of the literacy office from DPI will be speaking. And so I'm anticipating additional guidance there, so instead of bringing that policy to the March policy meeting, I will wait till April or May, whenever the next one is.
Sure.
So, and we're just required to have it in place by July 1. We don't have to begin implementing it until later.
Okay.
So, but it has to be on the books by July 1. So we've got some time.
We don't really have a crunch because, you know, it has to go through 2 readings, et cetera, so this is, you know, it's dragging their feet a little bit.
Yeah, so we will have to move swiftly once we get done.
But it sounds like a straightforward policy where it
I
won't
think
be.
it's a little more complicated than I thought it
Oh,
would
really?
be once I started unpacking it, but I think they've given us a good model.
Okay.
And once I get, I think I will be bringing to you something that from a practical matter, I'm very comfortable with and I think aligns with our philosophy, which has been supporting if they're not quite there, supporting them rather than holding them back. Our district philosophy hasn't been to retain large numbers of students, but to provide supports outside of that. And I think the research that I'm familiar with has not, recommended retention for large numbers of students. Except I would never say never. For some, for a student, there might be students who I want to have that opportunity if a team, and be clear about the team, decides that's in the best interest of the student, including the parents, then we want to support that. But there are other ways that we can support students if they're not quite there.
Sure.
So I think we will be in a good spot. But yes, May and June, we may have some work to do. That's all I have.
Okay.
Right, thank you.
Very good, very
Thank
thorough.
you.
Thank you for the update. Okay, so any other questions or anything? Alright, so we'll move on to action items, but maybe a little discussion first, right? Student travel.
Yes, so as we have done in previous years, we have collected information on upcoming out-of-state and overnight field trips that have occurred before or have been previously brought forward, and that you have thoroughly vetted with the information for this year or for next school year. And we have historically, with your approval, been able to move forward with those. I can say that the newest trip on here, I believe that we added was the world language. Well, the second newest trip, I guess, the Orlando trip hasn't happened yet. Yes. The Orlando trip on here, we've already really approved that.
Sorry, which row?
Second row.
The band and orchestra for
Because Adam brought that forward.
Yes.
But it is on here.
Yep, it gets listed because the business department uses this list also.
Sure.
I recall this, like
Yes.
an annual thing that we
the-
just.
Yeah.
The
Yep.
newest one before that was the trip to the world language trip to
Right,
Concordia.
that was the newest one.
That was the newest one. They were just supposed to have gone this weekend. They ended up not having enough interest.
Oh,
So that trip has not happened, or
it is a hike.
in cold weather too. So,
Okay.
but they're want to move forward with it, so they do have,
Well, maybe it'll,
yeah.
catch on and
exactly,
word of mouth always helps too.
absolutely.
Okay, any questions about,
No, it's a
they all look familiar and,
So we need a motion?
it's listed. Motion to approve the proposed 2025 to 2026 student travel requests.
I will, can I just add
Oh,
one
yeah,
more thing
sure,
before I
go ahead.
forget, in case you know, see it missing, the German trip. We have had like an every other year German trip. We have a new sponsor for that with the new German teacher, and he had some changes to the time of year and a couple other details, and so we removed that from this process, and he will bring it forward as a new trip,
Okay.
just so everybody's clear on, the changes, et cetera.
Okay.
So that's not in the mix here at this time.
Okay, so
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
And none opposed, so it passes.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Trips or
Really excited.
travel.
We love
Great
summer
opportunities for the
Like amazing.
students.
It's significant trip.
Yeah. Big time travel, I wish I was going.
I know, that's
Just pick
really
one,
fun
I
when
wanna
it's
go
on
to
there.
one. Okay, so the next one is E4E, an ACP plan.
Yes, so we brought this forward last year,
Mm-hmm.
as I think a lengthy discussion item. We have not made any substantive changes to it. I think where we had data available, Laura went in and added the data under the district career readiness data. And then, there was a line in here toward the end that said we were working on a new strategic plan and anticipated some things would come up. So we went ahead and removed that, because obviously we have a strategic plan. Otherwise, we have not made changes to this for this year, but it does technically require annual approval.
Okay.
So I wanted to bring it forward with the note that Mr. Halverson and I have had a little discussion about work and review in the future for this, to talk about how we could, what tweaks we wanna make, or what committee work we wanna have around this in the future, but nothing at this time. So, which is why I didn't bring a team.
I mean, yeah, I remember it from last time, so. Any questions about any of that?
I swear. Mr. Halverson said something with Zillow.
I think we had initially said that they were looking at Navient, maybe moving down to
Yes.
the middle
Oh, yeah.
school.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we
But
haven't
then
made
we
that
had
change
talked
yet.
to
We can always
middle school.
adjust
Yeah.
that probably.
Yes.
Staff, and they were not excited
Okay.
about that
So,
idea.
That change hasn't been made. It could be, that still could happen, but it
Right?
hasn't been made.
We had that
I-
conversation?
I didn't hear that part, sorry.
I think that,
I don't
I think
know.
that's possible. So at this current time, we're still using Zello.
Okay.
So I did talk to him briefly about, because I received the Navions for the high school, the bill
Right,
and the renewal, thank you.
yes.
And so I said, if you're gonna add Navions to this, we need to talk budget, et cetera. And so I think that's still in process. So I can check with him and have him
Right.
connect back around that.
Because then it was like the issue of the fluency of Zello to Naviance. There was pros and cons.
Yes.
From what I recall.
But it can always be, if it,
Yes, we can change within this plan, and that would come to you probably through student services. I could bring it here as well.
alrighty, any other questions? Okay, do I have a motion to approve the updated academic and career planning / education for employment plan? I have to say slash out loud, it's kind of
Okay.
reading things in parentheses. All in favor?
Aye.
And none opposed. Okay, so then and I said aye, sure, aye. Well, delayed. All right, so that passes, that's great. All right, committee, I think we have a robust agenda that we're really chipping away at.
We are making progress, so I anticipate our next meeting on April 16th to cover elementary social studies curriculum recommendation for your approval, bringing forward that 6th grade social studies adjustment for your approval, potentially a German trip, we'll see when he's ready. And then I already have a list running for May as well, so I think we'll have a busy
Yeah.
spring as we typically do.
Yeah.
So, but if there's anything else, please let me know. I am gonna request if possible, I know this is gonna sound
Earlier time. Oh.
actually a later time.
Oh, I'm impressed.
Could we start at 6:30 next time?
I'm okay with that.
Okay, that would be
I'm always
fantastic.
okay with
That will accommodate our schedule a
Okay.
little better this
Okay.
one time, so I figured
That
that.
was early.
Well, it wouldn't work for me. I have to stay employed.
That's right, so sorry, actually 6:30 will work better for us if that works. for
Okay, sure.
everybody else.
That works for me.
Thank you very much.
And then that
16th.
meeting date is on the 16th?
16th,
Yeah,
April
so 6:30, so we'll
Okay.
adjust that in the calendar. And then, any other things you wanna add for the agenda planning? Oh, there's back, I guess, oh, so that's good. No, I mean, some of these things on here I could see as potential, you know how we always kind of like something that we
Mhm.
maybe dig our teeth into a little bit in the summer.
Yeah.
There could be one or two things in there
Yeah.
too, but then there's the
I have some things on
literacy.
there.
Yeah,
Some of these, yes, I've
yeah,
got
like
some.
policy things,
Yes,
whatnot, so.
I've got some ideas, and I think, I will say that in talking with Lisa Kiefer, who's our career, school career coordinator, I think the personal finance graduation requirement will bring in the fall.
Okay.
So I'm just talking with her, I think that will make the most sense.
And then you'll be starting up a new agenda.
Oh, yes, well, there's never a shortage of things.
No,
Um,
like just
yeah,
delete
we'll-
all that and then
Yes,
all the dates and restart,
yes, for sure.
reset.
Well, actually, I think by the end of the year, have a number of these things checked off, which means we're on track with the things we thought we were gonna be doing. So
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, I'm
Okay.
excited and congratulations on staying on top of everything, because
Mhm.
you guys have had a lot to balance and you pushed through, so well done.
Yeah, with all the curriculum, the standards,
Oh, and the training,
literacy and the training.
the certificates.
Yes.
I mean, all the certificates.
Luckily, they're all electronic.
Yeah, at least you can like
Filing
develop like
them
a
in a way that
spreadsheet
you
or
But
a
can-
database.
accomplishing them and organizing.
Exactly, it's a
So,
lot of work.
well
I'm
done.
hoping to finish my Cox campus during spring break. We'll see if I get it done. See if I pass my test at the end.
I know.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, alright, so next meeting's April 16th at 6:30, and then do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll motion.
Okay, all in favor? Oh, second by Nina, and then all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, meeting is adjourned.
Thank you very much.
Oh, good, I was having a mini panic attack that I scheduled something on the date of our curriculum meeting on the 16th, I was having